My family wants me to forgive my oldest brother. After all, he did do that thing to my fiancée in their house. I am 27 years old and my fiancée 25. I met almost 7 years ago when I was studying at university. We met through mutual friends and started dating about a year later. When she was introduced to my family, everyone was very happy with her, even my mother, who is always a bit reserved about foreigners. Editor. My parents are immigrants and since they came to, they have always maintained close ties with the local community, so they are usually very cautious about non-locals. This may sound racist, but it is not. Now I must mention my brother. 29 months before the incident, he was my superhero. I always admired him because he was never afraid of local kids and always protected my sister and me. He always reminded us that we had every right to live there just like anyone else, despite people trying to annoy us. When I introduced him to my girlfriend, they became good friends. As time went on, my girlfriend became very close to my family, especially my siblings. Due to the close relationship with my family, she often hung out with my other relatives. She would go shopping with my sister and mother, play pool with me and my cousins, and attend every party my family threw. It was at one of these parties that she got so drunk that I ended up sleeping on the floor of my parents' living room after the party was over. My girlfriend was acting very strangely, and when I asked her what was going on, she told me that I think your brother wants to kiss me. Hearing this, she gave me a shock that made the effects of the alcohol disappear. I asked her to tell me what had happened, and she told me that a few guests had gone up to the roof to go drinking and feel the wind or something like that. They gradually left, and in the end, only she and my brother were still there. They drank for a while longer, and when they were talking, she noticed that he was staring at her. Suddenly, he bent down to kiss her, but she avoided it more quickly. From then on, the atmosphere became very awkward, and she left after telling me what happened. I took her to her house and later, I confronted my brother with the whole story. He basically told me the same story but from his perspective. He apologized and said he had been drinking too much and wasn't thinking, and he apologized for doing it. When I think back to that conversation, my blood boils because at the time I thought it was just a minor thing that could be resolved through conversation and establishing some boundaries. I can't imagine what happened after what happened at that party. The relationship between my brother and I became awkward, and we hardly spoke anymore. If we did, we spoke as politely as possible like strangers. The only person who knew what happened, apart from the three of us, was my younger sister. Once when she was chatting with my girlfriend, she asked me if I knew why my brother and I had become estranged. I told her the story of my girlfriend and I, and we decided not to comment on the rest of my family, as we didn't want the relationship to break down further after a few months. Afterwards, my family organized a party and invited a lot of people, including friends, family, and community members. It was at that party that my girlfriend and my brother met again. At the time, I thought that enough time had passed since the kissing incident, and that this could be the first step towards things returning to normal. At some point during the party, I lost track of my girlfriend and started looking for her. I looked for her for a while and didn't see her, so I guess she might be with my sister. But then I suddenly thought of something and decided to go upstairs and take a look. As I went upstairs, I heard a strange noise coming from one of the rooms. When I opened the door, my brother was holding my girlfriend down on the bed, covering her mouth and trying to put his hand under her shirt, while she was trying to resist. Without thinking, as soon as I saw them, I pounced on my brother and started hitting him. My girlfriend left the room as fast as she could and went downstairs for help. When my father and uncles came up, I was still hitting my brother. There was blood on his face and on my knuckles. My father had to separate us, but I kept insulting him and hitting him. Finally, he separated us and took me out of the room while my uncles checked my brother's injuries. Outside the room, my father asked me what the hell had happened to make me act so badly. It took me a while to find the words, and I finally told him that I had just seen my brother trying to abuse my girlfriend. My father knew that I was in shock for a while, and he sat on the floor, pressing his hands to his forehead, completely silent for about 10 minutes, until my uncles called him, because they were taking my brother to the hospital. After they had taken my brother away, I went to look for my girlfriend and found her talking to my sister about what had just happened. My sister and I said goodbye and we walked all the way back home. She kept crying. She was confused and angry. When we got home, she cried until she fell asleep, which was her routine for the next few days. It wasn't until later that she could slowly start speaking again. During those few days, my family kept informing me about my brother's condition. He had broken his nose and dislocated his jaw. My mother denied it all, couldn't believe her son had done such a thing. But I didn't think much of it because everyone reacts differently in the end, and in a way I understood why my mom was trying to explain my brother's actions. The last I heard from him was that after he was released from the hospital, everyone had turned their backs on him because of what he had done. They fired him and left town. I pretty much cut myself off from the outside world and focused on helping my girlfriend. To say the least, she was doing her best to cope with the situation. She was still very afraid of what had happened and completely drained. But after staying at home for almost a month, she had to go to work. But she came back after a few hours because she told me that she couldn't stop feeling threatened, that she was in danger, and that someone could do something bad to her at any time. When she calmed down, I suggested that it would be a good idea for her to seek professional help. Although she didn't think it was the best idea at first, she finally accepted it, and it really was the best choice for both of us. After the therapy began, she started to improve. After almost 2 months of therapy, the therapist suggested that I should perhaps also start therapy so that I could not only fully understand her therapy and help her properly, but also because she told her therapist that since that incident, I had hardly had contact with anyone other than her, and I had never really talked about my feelings. At first it sounded strange, but I would not question the advice of her therapist, even if she told me that I would only benefit. I thought I could release the backlog of small things. I remember feeling very angry at the end of the first therapy session, not only at my brother but also at myself. I suppressed my feelings because I kept blaming myself for not noticing my brother's behavior. And most of all, I felt powerless because I couldn't protect her as I always said I would. He was afraid of something like this happening again. After a few sessions, things finally started to get better, and we both improved mentally. We even decided to take self-defense classes. A few weeks ago, I proposed to her. When I told my family, everyone congratulated me, but my mother remained silent. When no one was looking, she asked if we could talk alone later. When we were alone, she told me that she was very happy for both of us, but that she needed to tell me something. That's when she told me that she had been in contact with my brother since the beginning of the pandemic. She told me that my brother had been looking for her to find out if she and my father were okay, if there was anything he could do to help them, and that he was sorry for what he had done. My mother went on and on about him until she told me something that almost made me yell at her. She told me that I think it's time to forgive your brother, and then she went on. I left the room, got the key, and went home. When I got home, I told my fiancée what my mother had told me, and she, like me, couldn't believe what she had said. Over the next few days, while congratulating me on my engagement, she asked me questions about my brother, and whether we had spoken again, whether we had reconnected, and so on. I ignored the situation as much as possible until 4 days ago, when my mother called me and said that she had told my brother about my engagement and that he was coming to town next week because he wanted to talk to me. I hung up the phone and haven't contacted her since. Later, some relatives told me that maybe my mother was right and that I should give my brother another chance. Yesterday afternoon, my father called and told me that I must be a good brother and at least try, even though my father asked me to forgive my brother for what he did. But suddenly everyone forgot what he did. For years is enough to forget what he did. I really can't understand why they think that way. To be honest, I don't know what to think of my family now. I just know that I'm angry, and I definitely don't want to see my brother again. I'm writing this because I need to vent. My appointment with my psychologist has been postponed and I need to let off steam. It may not be the most professional way to do it, but I need to express my feelings somehow. Thanks to anyone reading this comment. Noteworthy comment, well summarized. So your mother is protecting you and wants you to forgive a rapist/sexual assaulter. It may sound racist, but her attitude means she values your partner less. How would she react if someone tried to kidnap your sister? I guess she won't completely forgive and forget. Your family is willing to sacrifice you, your partner, and your relationship just to play the happy family. And she is a woman, how dare she? Honestly, you'd better go see them now because they have shown their willingness to reconcile, which in itself is a happy family coffin for the male. Your fiancé now knows that they will not take her or you side, and what almost happened in their own house now means nothing at all. They demand that she smile, attend barbecues, open Christmas presents, and laugh across the table from your brother, who sexually assaulted her twice, and they are completely fine with this. Let's face it, your mother didn't trust your fiancé from the beginning. She probably thought it was a drunken mistake. You may have thought you saw something different. Yes, they were alone in a room. He was wrong to do it, but you overreacted because they drank, things got out of hand, or some other ridiculous thing. Your mother as a woman, as a mother of a boy, as a member of society directly makes me sick. They chose them. They didn't choose your side. Get out of here and start over. If he comes back, she may never feel safe, not even dare to leave the front of your house every day. Update. My family wants me to forgive my brother after he tried to destroy our relationship. My fiancé. Hi everyone. I really didn't expect an update, at least not so soon. The moment I posted it was because I really needed to find somewhere to let off some steam, but I didn't expect to get such a kind response from everyone. Thank you. I'd especially like to thank everyone who has expressed their blessings and good wishes to my fiancé, and I'd also like to answer some of the common concerns people have. I don't know if my previous post made it clear that I intend to forgive my brother, but I will never do so. To clarify this, I no longer have a brother. That person died 4 years ago. Not all of my family are trying to forgive my brother in every possible way, but a few do. Apart from my parents, I can easily see all of this, and to clarify, my sister is by my side. She is my fiancé's best friend and the only person apart from me who knows how much pain she suffered in the first month after the incident. Third, for some of you, I told my parents, and I generally tell them, that if I knew my brother was in town, I would never speak to them again. What my brother has done over the past few years is that when my mom told me he had contacted her in the early days of the pandemic, he had basically moved to the other side of our country, changed his name, and started treatment so that he could one day turn over a new leaf. I haven't heard any more news, and my sister hasn't asked my parents about him, so that's all we know. Someone privately asked me why my brother didn't go to prison, and I replied privately to that person. I would also like to tell you the main reason here, because I hit my brother until he had to be taken to the hospital. When I consulted a lawyer, a friend of mine told me that if I sued my brother, he would drag me down too. I would have had to go to jail for a while, and my then-girlfriend needed to be tested and she wasn't fit for something like that, and my priority at the time was to take care of her. If I went to jail, I wouldn't be able to help her. We were only given a restraining order against her at the time, and the reason I didn't post an update sooner is because we both received restraining orders against my brother. I haven't told my parents about this yet, so if my brother shows up at any time, they will take him to the local police station. Some of you mentioned that the attitude my mother displayed in this situation is because, as I mentioned in a previous post, my girlfriend is not from our community, but that is not the reason, I can assure you. So now to talk about everyone expecting why I responded the way I did to my family, I was ready to say all those who want to forgive my brother. For my parents, give them an ultimatum and let them choose between their son and someone who is trying to be 0p between being the brother-in-law or me and their daughter. But I realized something else when I read the comments on my previous post, which made me think about a terrible possibility. The comments that could have happened were basically about how my brother had enough confidence to try to pee in front of a full house of people, and how my parents' reaction these days made it possible that my brother had done something like this before, or even worse, that my parents had covered up the problem. This problem once again shook my world. I never thought about this possibility, and obviously I thought about it too much, as my fiancée asked me what I was thinking about. A few hours later, I told her and asked if she wanted me to delete the post, but after reading the first comment and the rest of the comments, she understood why I did it, and was very happy with the kind messages and support sent to her. She shuddered when I told her that my brother may have done similar things to other people in the past. After that, we told my sister, and then started asking other family members, friends who supported me, and community members if they had noticed any unusual behavior from my brother before the incident. So far, none of my family members remember my brother being this way with them, but that's different for friends. Some of them remember my brother being especially friendly, sometimes even a little too sensitive with other family members' friends or girlfriends, but nowhere near to the point of trying to zero in on them. It wasn't until my sister contacted my brother's ex-girlfriend's sister that she mentioned how strange my brother had been around her family. She had noticed that she had been very quiet around him since he started dating her sister, and she also mentioned that my brother had acted overly flirtatiously towards her. We also contacted one of my brother's former colleagues, who told us that one night after a company party, she remembered my brother taking another colleague away with him. However, according to her recollection, she saw her friend really drunk at the time, and that morning she didn't quite remember what happened last night. After hearing these stories, I realized that my brother was never the person I thought he was. Now I'm convinced that my brother poses a threat to the people around him. Since yesterday, all the people involved have been brought together again, and all the evidence against my brother has been collected. When we are ready, we will present all the evidence to everyone in the community, including everyone on social media, and anyone else we can contact. I must also say that I have not yet spoken to my parents. Tomorrow morning I will drop a bomb on them and at the same time issue an ultimatum. I will also tell them that if we find any evidence that anyone knew what my brother did, they will also have to face the consequences. I won't update, at least not with any significant developments, until my brother faces the consequences. This is not how I imagine the weeks after proposing, but we can put this behind us for now. My fiancée has been by my side the whole time, and I'm doing this for her as best as I can. I can't imagine how she must be feeling right now, but I'm proud of her for not being afraid to face her trauma, which has allowed her to help others again. Thank you to everyone who has supported me. Made a mistake in the line saying that one tried to be 0p his brother's fiancée or me and their daughter. He meant their daughter. He was referring to his sister. She is pregnant. He corrected this mistake in the comments. Update to my family wants me to forgive my brother. He tried to 0 my fiancée. Everyone, I know I haven't updated in a while, but I wanted to post a full update after the issue was resolved. Once again, I would like to thank everyone who has expressed their well wishes to me, my fiancé, and anyone else my brother may have hurt. Now back to the topic at hand. Although the aftermath is still ongoing, I am happy to report that my brother is receiving the legal consequences for his actions. When I last updated, my fiancé and I, along with some friends, began looking into my brother's past to see if he had abused or tried to abuse other women. Once we had evidence, my brother would. Eventually, we collected the cases of 8 different women, including my fiancée, who had all been harassed by my brother, including ex-girlfriends, ex-colleagues, and 2 of his current colleagues. I also mentioned that once we were ready, I would show my parents what kind of monster they had defined, and that I would show everyone this information via social media, but neither of these things went as planned, mainly because our lawyer advised that if I showed my parents, they would probably try to shield my brother and prevent him from accepting what we had planned for him. At first I didn't consider this possibility, mainly because I wanted to try to get my parents to accept some common sense, but at that time I could trust them because they were likely to cover up my brother's actions, and disseminating information through social media could be advantageous for my brother, which would basically unnecessarily complicate things, so the confrontation with my parents had to wait. I have to mention my sister, who sacrificed herself for the team. She has always pretended to remain neutral with them, when in fact she has been helping my fiancé and me. Learning more about what happened while my brother was away, the main things she learned were as follows. After what happened at the party, my brother basically moved to the other side of the country because he had a friend there. Because my family had common sense at the time, they turned their backs on him when he started living there. He basically told everyone the reason why his family disowned him because they found out that he was having an affair with his brother's girlfriend. Yes, they actually dared to tell that story, talk about my fiancé, because as I mentioned before, there is no police file because the night of the incident I basically took him to the hospital, and because of that, we would not have been able to take legal action if my brother had not dragged me down, which is why my brother was able to get a job and rebuild his life. My brother first contacted my parents at the end of 2021 years old. At the end of 2021, he contacted my parents for the first time, which was when the pandemic was at its worst in my country. Since then, he and my mother have been in regular contact, and she and my father have even visited him a few times. In the end, what was perhaps the worst, it turned out that over the years my brother had a daughter, basically the product of a one-night stand. He basically got a girl pregnant in April 2021. April. They agreed to raise the child together because neither of them wanted to get married. Finally, in December of the same year, they had my niece. My brother introduced them to my parents and sister 2 weeks ago. All the evidence was ready. When she informed me, it was like a bucket of cold water was poured over my face. At first, I couldn't believe what my sister was telling me, but then she showed me their pictures, and at that moment my world shook again, because now not only my family had to face the truth, but also his family. But I realized that the child was another reason to continue the search for G, because we couldn't risk her and her mother coming into contact with my brother, my fiancé and me again. We were there for each other. If the whole situation was already difficult for me, has been difficult, I can't imagine what's to come. I can fully understand how to overcome the trauma she has experienced and have the ability to help others. In the end, after all this, the day finally came. My brother was at my parents' house when the police showed up. My sister said that the scene was not a pretty sight. As soon as the police knocked on the door, my brother started running and was finally caught by a police officer, Polly. He tried to resist and as a result was subdued with a stun gun and charged with assaulting a police officer. After 2 days in custody, my brother was sent to prison. During the trial, there was chaos in and outside the courtroom. During the trial, 2 women who had been attacked by my brother cried uncontrollably while giving testimony, while my fiancée was able to remain composed while testifying. But when we were alone, she began to cry. I comforted her. And when my parents and sister came to testify, I broke down. The man was finally brought to justice, but he had already caused so much damage that I don't think many girls can ever fully forget, but learn to live with the trauma. It was the hardest week of my life, but in the end, after such a long time, my brother was found guilty on 8 counts and he will spend the rest of his life in prison. Of course, he tried to drag me down with him at least, and his lawyer said a lot about excessive use of force and self-defense, but the judge dismissed the charges. As for my niece, her mother initially denied it, but after being shown the evidence, she was more than willing to help us. As for my parents and those who supported my brother, it will be hard to see them again, mainly my parents, but I can no longer trust them. Although I have now lost part of my family, my future seems bright. By the side of the woman I love, I feel a weight has been lifted, not only for me and my fiancé, but for all the other women who have been hurt by my brother. I can only express my gratitude and admiration to all these women, and to everyone who has told a similar story in the comments on my previous posts. To all the men and women who have been hurt by such terrible events, I send my best wishes and hope that you can live in peace. To those who are afraid to speak out, I want to say that you are not alone. This situation has made me understand that there are more good people than bad, and that there are always people willing to lend a hand. I hope that my fiancé's story can be heard by those who care and help those in need. I feel like a period of our lives has ended, but in the end I feel like it's a new beginning for everyone who deserves it, because a human brotherhood excuse has finally been sent to prison. This story has settled, and to be honest, how can a family forgive someone for doing something that could cause someone to have PTSD? I hope he can reduce the damage and have a good journey with his fiancée.